Today, we're looking into a really dark chapter from the Algerian War of Independence. It's a story about a day that would tragically earn the name Red Christmas.
So, let's set the scene. The place is El-Eulma, a town in Algeria, and the date is Christmas Day, 1956. But for the people here, this holiday would be forever stained by an act of just brutal violence.
And we're going to start with this absolutely chilling eyewitness account from a 14-year-old boy. That one sentence just forces you to ask so many questions, right? Who was Roger Bernard? Who was young Imezian? And how did a day of peace completely fall apart into something so violent?
Well, that single, horrifying act, it was just one piece of a much bigger, much darker picture. It was part of a massacre that unfolded right there on the streets of El-Eulma. And that's really the central question for us today. What on earth happened? What series of events could possibly turn a holiday into such a tragedy? Let's dig into the records and see if we can piece it together.
You know, a massacre like this, it just doesn't happen in a vacuum. It was one bloody turn in a vicious cycle of attack and retaliation that really defined the entire Algerian war. The spark on this particular day was an attack by the FLN, the National Liberation Front. One of their militants threw a grenade into a European-owned café in the middle of town. Now, it actually didn't cause any casualties, but it wasn't a random act. It was part of a whole wave of attacks planned across the country for the holidays. And the way this was framed by the officials is so important. The French administration didn't just call it an attack. They specifically labeled it a surge of terrorism. That kind of language really set the stage for what was coming next: swift and incredibly brutal reprisals.
But here's the thing. The reprisal wasn't carried out by the official French military. Instead, it was the work of this really shadowy organization that went by the name La Main Rouge, or the Red Hand.
So who were these guys? Well, the Red Hand was this murky criminal group made up of radical French colonists. Their whole purpose was assassination, to take out FLN sympathizers and mess up their networks. And crucially, their actions often acted as a cover for the French special services, which really blurs the line between a paramilitary terror group and official state violence. And this brings us right back to that name from the very beginning. The man who was leading the Red Hand death squad in El-Eulma that day was Roger Bernard. He's the man who put the pistol to young Imezian's neck. So according to the testimony from that 14-year-old witness, this is how it all went down. Bernard and his armed men burst into his father's forge, holding a list of suspects. They grabbed a 16-year-old boy named Aliane, dragged him out into the street, and Bernard executed him. When his brother, Mohand, tried to run, they hunted him down, beat him, and killed him too. And the horror didn't stop at the forge. This was a coordinated sweep through the entire town. At a carpentry shop nearby, the owner and 3 other people were also executed. Bernard's group was systematically moving through El-Eulma, hunting down people from their list. So what happened after the killing finally stopped? Well, the aftermath was swift, both for the victims' families and for the man who was responsible. And I mean, retribution came incredibly fast. The massacre happens on Christmas Day. Just 8 days later, on January 2nd, 1957, Roger Bernard himself was assassinated, right in front of his own house. But what about the human cost of that day? 18 victims were eventually identified after the massacre. I think it's important that we actually see their names, to remember them not as some statistic, but as real people whose lives were just cut short.
18 known victims. 18 families completely shattered on a day that should have been about peace.
And so, tragically, that number, it's likely not the final count. Witnesses reported seeing many other bodies, people who are never identified, being loaded onto trucks and just taken away. They were taken to an unknown destination, possibly a mass grave. The true, full death toll of that Red Christmas, we may never know. An event like this leaves a deep, deep scar on a community. And for the people of El-Eulma, they've worked to make sure that what happened is never forgotten. At the site of that carpentry shop, where the owner and 3 others were murdered, there's now a commemorative plaque. It's a physical reminder fixed right there in stone of what happened in that very spot. And the plaque itself says its purpose is so that no one forgets. It reframes these men not just as murder victims, but as martyrs, as men whose sacrifice, in the eyes of their community, helped forge the path to Algeria's independence. And that right there is a powerful testament to how memory can transform a tragedy into a foundational story of struggle and ultimately of liberation.